being real. And I want to talk about what it means to be Christ-like. There are various definitions of it. But this is one that I read, and the lady here in the front row says she goes to an evangelical church, is here to, build bridges between the churches, which I appreciate. I remember reading this definition in a Protestant book 20 years ago, and then I was reading an Orthodox book recently published in the past couple of years, and they said the same thing. I don't think the Orthodox guy was plagiarizing because he didn't speak in English, but okay, what does it mean to be Christ-like? Some people think, okay, well, I've gone through this, religious conversion. Now I'm going to start wearing sandals, and if you're a guy, grow a beard, long hair. Or what do you? We get, and a lot of us will get on this little trip, when we change the way we talk. Now you should change the way you talk if every other word is a 4-letter word. But I mean, we just have this affect of what it means to be Christ-like. But what does Christ-like really mean? Jesus Christ was the same person in what he did and who he was. Everything that Jesus did was during his earthly ministry was a direct reflection of who he was. And you could look at what he did and see who he was, and vice versa. There was no disparity. That is not true of every other human being. Because all of us, there's a little breakdown between who it is God's calling us to be and who we are. You really see it in adolescence, because in adolescence, you're just the person who is the person you're with, right? In adolescence, that way all the time. We have a very poorly defined sense of self, but the older we get, the more we need to understand who is it God's calling to be, and let me be that person. And then St. Paul's theology, right, tells us about this whole business about the body and the members, right? And members, this is a member, right? And how all the members are different. So that means that in God's plan for salvation in the church, there's rooms for talkative people, quiet people, outgoing people, introverted people, people good with their hands, intellectual people, etc., etc., etc. Just be the person. To be Christ-like is to be the person God has called you to be. But God has called none of us to be vulgar or selfish or greedy or punitive or anything else. That's what Christ-like means. And that's what we need to work on as we work on being people of prayer. Discovering who it is I am, and then being comfortable with who we are. And understand that it's okay that every one of us here is different. I won't like you any less for that, because I don't care about liking you. I want to love you. As we think about also being real, think about this. We talk about in Christian theology all the time the capital O other, that's God. The little o other, that's the other person. And obviously, the more we're in communion with God, the more we're in communion with other people, and vice versa. This is important. This is very fundamental in Orthodox spirituality. There are no monads in Christianity, just a series of dyads. In other words, it's like mathematics. You're adding numbers in a line. You got to add this number to this number, this number to this number, this number. It's just one at a time. That's how it is. It's a series of relationships. If you want an illustration of this, especially this series of dyads things, think about this. I'm really bad about this. And we have the Orthodox Church. Anybody know how many sacraments the Orthodox Church has? It has 8 sacraments. Coffee hour is the 8th sacrament. And I'm really bad. I'll be in coffee hour, and I'll be talking to somebody, but then I know over here is the parish council president, and he and I need to talk about that. So I'm talking, but I'm out the corner of my eye looking for him, and I'm not with that. And, that's not only bad Christian, it's bad sales techniques. If anybody here trains as a salesperson, say who's the most important person? Your customer, right? In your face. That's the person who puts bread and butter on your table, right? And so, same thing in Christianity. It's a series of dyads. The most important dyad is me and God. No monads. If I'm off by myself in the wilderness praying, it's me and God, and it's also me united in prayer to everybody else who has ever prayed or ever will pray. Very important part of being real is being aware of feelings. Beware of feelings. In American, and this is American Christianity, and it affects every brand of American Christianity. We're extremely feelings-oriented. And we even talk about testing our spiritual barometer every day. And that's dangerous. Because what happens is, if I wake up one day, it's like, yeah, I'm really on fire for the Lord, then I go off and I do all kinds of righteous and virtuous things. And then I go through a period of my life where, hey, is there a God? Does he really care? Then I go off and do all the things I'm ashamed of 20 years later. So we need to stop letting our feelings drive our spirituality. God's there all the time. He's there. If I feel close to him, he's there. If I don't feel close to him, he's still there. He's always there. And we pray not worried about our feelings. The feelings can be very, very deceptive. Now, as counselors, we use feelings all the time. And that's a good thing. But as people of prayer, we need to look at our feelings with a little bit of suspicion. Because I want to do what's right and virtuous. I want to be a person of prayer all the time, regardless of whether or not I feel close to God in a particular day. And when we think about that, there are times we feel very warm and feel his presence. And that's not an illusion or delusion. It's real. But we need to test our own warmth and wonder if it's not just our own mood, too. We need to look at that with suspicion. And those times when we feel close to God, if it's real, there's humility, and there's joy, and there's peace. And if it's not real, if it's our own conceit, then that kind of shows through, too. And if you live long enough as a Christian, probably judging by the average age of the person here, most of us have lived long enough, you get to know, most of us have lived long enough to get to differentiate between these two types of warmth. As we think about being real, think about our desires and our temptations. We begin embracing some type of a desire, good or bad, mentally. We think about it. Then it becomes part of our passions, and then it becomes an active act. It's very easy to illustrate with sin. We think about doing it, we fall in love with doing it, and then we act on it. And that keeps us, obviously, from being real. As we think about prayer and being real, I want to talk about what prayer is not, and we're going to talk about very shortly about praying specifically. This is a good question. People will say, and this is a question all Christians should be able to answer. How is prayer different from meditation? How is it different from self-hypnosis? Because some people say it's the same thing. It's not. And here's the easy answer. And again, I will say this. I'm saying this in all humility. I wrote this years ago. I just read this wildly popular bestseller by an Orthodox monk who said the same thing. And it's amazing how God leads us to these various conclusions. Okay, prayer is not meditation. Why? Because when we meditate, we're emptying ourselves. Think about if you ever practice meditation. It's just a self-emptying. It's not self-hypnosis. Self-hypnosis is kind of cool. I used to do it when I was playing sports. And you listen to little tapes. But self-hypnosis is a heightened awareness of self. What's prayer? Prayer is an emptying so that we can have a heightened awareness of God. That's what prayer is. That's why prayer isn't meditation, not self-hypnosis. In prayer, we empty ourselves so that we can be aware of God. And that's why prayer is so different. When we stand before God with our news in our heart, we've emptied ourselves so that we can be aware of God. So that's something all of us should be able to answer. The next time somebody says, all religions are the same. No, they're not. Prayer should yield discernment and heightened awareness, not MIGO. What's MIGO stand for? Anybody know? It was coined by the reporters during the Reagan White House. What's MIGO stand for? My eyes glaze over. So if we are people of prayer, if we're active living Christians, we shouldn't have that la-la dazed look on our face, like somebody just hit us with a ball-peen hammer between the eyes. And sometimes we cultivate that in spirituality. And I'll meet people like that, and I feel like in the movies, snap out of it, kid. Because prayer should make us more aware of that other person, aware of God's presence, aware of the things around us, not oblivious. In this MIGO state, in that MIGO state, all we're doing is altering our brain patterns somehow. But with discernment, we get a chance to really know God and know ourselves, to begin to know other people. Real, Christ-like people are virtuous. Remember, all of us are being called to a life of virtue. We all are different as far as the talents God's given us, but we're all called to be virtuous, which means doing good things. How to acquire virtues. Quick lesson in acquiring virtues before we shift to another attitude. Really, it's really easy. That's not, by nice Christianity, Orthodox Christianity, I would say especially, is not only practical, it's easy. I mean, this stuff, it's like, just follow the directions. Okay, here's not how not to be virtuous. You say, boy, you know, that was a pretty cool presentation about Pentecost. I'm going to start being more generous, praying more, being more forgiving, less angry. Well, you know, it's like New Year's Day when you say, I'm going to wake up, this year I'm going to learn Japanese, and I'm going to run 10 miles a day. And, well, you don't do that stuff, right? Okay, so how to be virtuous? Say, what is that one thing that's holding me back? What is it? What's that one thing? Is it my anger? Is it my greed? Is it my drinking? What is that one thing? That one thing. And that's what you concentrate on. You get up in the morning, you say, okay, Lord, I know when I get on the road, people are going to cut me off, and I'm going to want to give them the finger and yell at him. I'm not going to do it. Please, Lord, give me the strength to not be angry. And I get in the office, and I'm going to see Sally Jones, and she's such a pill, and I want to wring her neck. But instead, I'm not going to let that happen. Please give me the strength. And you go through the whole day. And then you go through your day kind of praying about it throughout the day. And in the evening, you're ready to say your nighttime prayers. Yeah, well, you know, I got mad at one driver. Please forgive me. And, you know, Sally Jones, I didn't want to wring her neck but once. And you spend months, a couple years. You spend time working on this. You say, well, that's great. What about generosity? What about forgiveness? What about prayerfulness? Well, if you're praying every morning about being angry and thinking about that, and then therefore thinking about your interactions with people and have this heightened awareness, guess what happens to your prayerfulness and your jealousy and your greed? It all kind of falls away. So acquiring virtues is a matter of sitting down with yourself or with somebody saying, what do you think that one thing is I really need to work at? And then make it your thing. And you know, those things can change throughout our lives. And that's okay. Okay.